All right, welcome back. Well, I've finished it. I've finished the second book of the Stormlight Archives, Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. Great book. The first book, Way of Kings, was awesome, and this book I feel like is even better. So we've got the culmination of a lot of different character arcs coming together. The part 5 opens up with Kaladin remembering that the Stormfather said that he had killed Syl and worrying if he'll ever get her back. He's lost his powers, he's injured, he can't even heal himself. He's somewhat useless to the cause now that Dalinar is, taking as many forces as he can gather, along with Shallan and Navani, out onto the Shattered Plains in search of the Parshendi, as the countdown that has been, foretold of as along the way in the book reaches day 0, so to speak. And so we have all of this coming together. A lot of secrets that have been held close to particular characters throughout the story so far come to light and are now known, more broadly speaking, by those around them. Specifically, Shallan's ability to use Stormlight becomes known to Dalinar when she figures, now or never, there's really no better time than now to go ahead and show Dalinar what I'm able to do and see, where he thinks it would be useful. Same with Kaladin. Comes to a head at this part in the story where he shows others what he's able to do as well in order to save people. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about Shallan. There's something that I need to go back over and, we need to consider something that I overlooked or that I was wrong about. In part 4, we talked about how it was mentioned that Shallan was really the one that was deserving of her father's wrath. And I figured that it maybe had something to do with her, predisposition to, in some ways, enable her father's, bad behavior, to put it lightly, because she was trying to, console everyone. But we find out that she had a much larger, in terms of importance, suppressed memory, that she was actually the one who had taken her mother's life, and her father took on the blame for that. That's something that Brandon Sanderson does very well throughout the books, throughout his writing, I should say, is he does not totally strawman or steelman any of the characters. All characters, like people in real life, are complex to various degrees in terms of their, moral virtues. And not any of the characters are just totally bad and totally good and it's just very simple, like a child's book. All these characters have a complexity about them. And we see that her father, who was truly bad in a lot of ways, had a bit of that complexity as well in terms of his, attempt to cover up what Shallan had done and to bear that burden for her. Obviously, he didn't handle it well, and he still got what was coming for him at the hands of Shallan, but now we see that she, in fact, took the life of both her mother and her father. So we see that. We also see some things come to light with Kaladin as he is struggling to find his way through this, moral maze, we could say, in deciding what should be done with King Elhokar. He's been persuaded to take Moash's side in terms of justifying, the killing of the king, removing him from his station so that it would be for the betterment of the, the nation overall. But that's not the right thing to do, and it's not Kaladin's place to make that decision. Syl has left him because he's abandoned his morals, his honor. He said that he would protect the king, and now he's going back against that. So he finally decides that he can't live with this. It reminds me of something I've been told, before, in terms of my profession. I've been told before there may be times when you have to choose between two decisions. Both could be right in different ways, and it may be really hard to decide. And I was told by a mentor, we could say, that at the end of the day, you got to decide what's going to allow you to sleep at night. And he said something to that effect to Moash. He said, I had to do what would allow me to sleep at night. So he goes back against Moash. He ends up saving King Elhokar, and he ends up flying, using his abilities that he, gets back when he decides to save King Elhokar. Still comes back to him, and flying back to the Shattered Plains. And in that moment, all the while, the assassin in white has returned to fight and try to kill King, or not King, but the de facto king, but Dalinar. And Adolin's trying to save him. The assassin in white is winning. He's about to kill Dalinar. As a matter of fact, he lashes him up into the sky, and it's only a matter of time before he comes falling back down. And then we get this majestic scene where Dalinar comes down slowly and lands, and then above him comes down Kaladin, who slams into the ground, and we get the scene that is depicted in the illustration on the cover of the book, which I'll show here. We get this scene of Kaladin landing. It's like Kaladin has re-entered the chat, you know? So then we get this crazy battle between him and the assassin in white. They're lashing themselves, you know, fighting in the sky, very anime-esque type of battle. And Kaladin ultimately ends up besting Szeth and defeating him. We think that he's dead, gone for good, but as we see at the very end of the book, that's not entirely the case. Backing up a little bit to talk about Shallan, who has gone with Dalinar and Navani and the rest of them out to the center of the Shattered Plains. Her main goal is looking for Urithiru and the Oath Gate that would allow them to get to Urithiru. Once she shows Dalinar the abilities that she has, he puts a lot of trust in her and says, look, you are our way out of this. The Everstorm is coming and it's clashing with the High Storm and it's gonna take them all out. He says, you're going to be our escape plan. You must find the gate to Urithiru. That will be our way out of this. And so she's mapping out the Shattered Plains. She's trying to find where the Oath Gate would be. And we get this depiction and an illustration of her map of the Shattered Plains, and it looks like none other than a very clear depiction of a mandala, which I'll show you here. And so we see that the Oath Gate to Urithiru, as we've talked about before on the channel, is where we would expect it to be, right at the center of the mandala, right at the unity of the whole self, which has been foreshadowed along the way throughout the book so far. So really cool integration of that symbolism by Brandon Sanderson into the story. And indeed, Shallan does find the Oath Gate to Urithiru there, and it does work as an escape route for them to evade this cataclysm of the High Storm and the Everstorm colliding after they've defeated, at least so far as we think. I hold out for there to be more from the Parshendi to come, but they've defeated the Parshendi for all intents and purposes in this particular battle. All right, so now we find ourselves in a situation where Shallan's abilities are known, Kaladin's abilities are known, and should I mention also that Syl, as Kaladin's shard blade and her ability to adapt to what he needs in real time to transform between different types of weapons and even a shield, that's awesome. And it sheds more light on why Kaladin couldn't accept a regular shard blade earlier in the story. It is said that these regular shard blades from earlier in the story are those of dead Spren, and that's why it takes 10 heartbeats to revive them and to use those shard blades. And Syl, who is alive, is explaining to Kaladin that that's why it's wrong to use these. It's almost blasphemous in a way. And so I had been critical of Kaladin for, giving up the opportunity to take these shard blades and to take on that responsibility for the betterment of the kingdom. But now we see that even if he had tried, it may not have worked out. The screaming that he would hear when he was close to that would hearken to this idea that it was something that he was incapable of doing, at least in terms of he would be incapable of wielding a shard blade like that while also having Syl at his side. So things worked out the way that they should have in this manner. And so back to what I was saying, Shallan, her abilities are known, Kaladin's abilities are known, Dalinar, his relationship with the Stormfather, who turns out to be a Spren, perhaps a leader of the Spren, similar to Syl. But anyways, he goes back and forth with them, and they kind of almost reach a mutual agreement that, yeah, they'll work together after Dalinar says the right words. which are accepted by the Stormfather. So now Dalinar has these particular abilities, and then none other than Renarin comes forth and says that he's realized he has these abilities as well. And then we also see that Lopin has somehow found that he has these abilities as well. I didn't expect that. And so we have all of these characters that we've had in the story so far, but going forward we find them in necessarily new positions in the story, you know, and then we also find ourselves in a new place, this Tower of Urithiru, a tower with many rooms, another symbol in a Jungian sense for the subconscious, you know, a house with many rooms that are yet to be explored. And in fact, we see that the characters, as the book comes to an end, are, you know, embarking to really explore Urithiru and see what secrets it has to uncover. So moving forward, we have all these characters in new positions and a new setting, and it's going to be an exciting new start to the story as we move forward. A couple revelations come to light. At the end, we see that Szeth has been resurrected, so to speak. It's said that he actually did die, and that's why he lost his bond to his shard blade. He doesn't have it any longer. He did die, but he was resurrected by what seems to be a herald. So we'll see what goes on with that moving forward. And then we also see that, as I suspected, although I was starting to lose hope, I was starting to accept it, but Jasnah has returned. It's not yet known to us how she survived, you know, her seeming death, but she has returned to the story. And so I'm excited to see what that means for us going forward. I am already working on the next book in the series, which is this short little novella, just so small. I looked it up, and Words of Radiance was about 400,000 words, and this is about 40,000 words, so it's only 10% the length. It's called Edge Dancer, as many of you probably know, and so far, I believe it will be for the whole book. I'm about halfway done. It follows a character, Lift, who we met in an interlude in Words of Radiance, one of my favorite interludes from the book, actually. So I'm enjoying this so far, and we'll talk about this in the next video. But for now, that is Words of Radiance. And I look forward to talking with you more as we move forward through the Stormlight archives. So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.